chocolate chip cookies. So we're going to kind of go through the steps and I'll kind of break it down a little bit, make it a little bit easier. So first of all, I wash my hands really well with soap and water for 30 seconds, really hot water to make sure I get rid of all that germs. And then I preheated the oven to 375 because we'll be needing that later on. So we'll just jump right in. So right away you're going to combine your flour, your soda, your baking soda, and your salt. So we'll go ahead and start with the flour. And you always want to put your wet ingredients and your dry ingredients in different containers. So we need 2 1/4 cups of flour. So I've got a 1 cup here. We'll just kind of spoon it into the 1 cup. All right, so 1 cup of flour in. So we just need 1 more, a 1/4. Alright, and 2 cups is in. And then let's grab that 1/4. Alright, so we have our 2 1/4 cups of flour. Next we're going to go on to the baking soda. So for the baking soda, it calls for 1 teaspoon of baking soda. We got the baking soda right here. Go ahead and open that up. And we need 1 teaspoon. So we'll go ahead and put it in here. You always want to make sure that with small ingredients, you make sure you level it off so it doesn't get too much. Not a heaping teaspoon, just a regular teaspoon. So we're going to go ahead and dump that into the dry ingredients. All right. And the last thing is our salt. So we need the same amount of salt. All right. And you always want to measure these ingredients over another bowl, just to make sure you don't get it into the bowl that you're mixing in. Alright, we got our 1 teaspoon of salt. Perfect. So what we're going to do with that right away is we're just going to mix it up a little bit and kind of get all those ingredients combined. And we're going to go ahead and set that aside and we're going to start working with our other ingredients. Alright, so in the second bowl, we're going to combine our butter, our sugar, and our vanilla. So the butter does need to be softened, so we're going to go ahead and put that in the microwave for just a few seconds while we get all the other ingredients ready. So it called for 2 sticks of butter, which also equals 1 cup. So I bought the half stick, so if you're going to do half sticks, then you need to do 4. But if you're doing a whole stick, you just need to do 2. Typically when you buy butter in a stick too, it'll tell you right on the side how much is in there, so you don't have to worry about putting it into your measuring cup or anything like that. So we don't want to completely melt the butter, we just want to soften it. So we're going to go ahead and just put it in the microwave for just a few seconds. So typically I start with 10 and I kind of go from there, so I'll do 10 right away. Alright, so then the next thing that we're going to go ahead and put in is our just our white sugar. So I've got the white sugar right here. When you're using jars like this, you need to make sure that we're kind of keeping them separated just to make sure everything is good in there. Alright, we're going to do 3/4 cup of this. So we're going to do our 1/4 cup. We're going to do it 3 times. Like I said, you got to make sure that you get the cup all the way filled up, but not heaping. Alright, so 1/4 cup. 2/4 cup, which also equals a half. And 3/4 cup. Perfect. So we have our white sugar in. So we're going to go ahead and just check on that butter and see if it's softened up real nice. Alright. So you don't want to touch the butter when you're looking at it. You just kind of want to push it against the side and see if it looks good. It doesn't quite look like it's there, so we're going to go another 10 seconds. While we're waiting on that, we can go ahead and do our brown sugar. So we're going to do 3/4 cup packed brown sugar. So I've got the brown sugar right here. And what you want to do when you're packing the brown sugar is you want to go ahead and spoon it in. And every time you spoon it in, you want to push it down really nice and tight. Make sure you're getting it really packed in there. Alright. So we've got a 1/4 cup there. Good. We're going to do 2/4. equals a half, so we just need one more and we'll be there. Alright, so we got that. Alright, let's go ahead and check on our butter since it's the last ingredient. Alright, not quite there. We'll give it one more 10 seconds. So while we're waiting on that, we're going to kind of stir our brown sugar and our sugar around. Just kind of get it a little bit mixed up. We are going to beat it, but we're just going to make sure that it's all good to go. Alright, it looks perfect, so we're going to go ahead and put the butter in. And we're going to use that same spoon that we used to kind of stir the dry mixture, and we're going to just make sure we get all the butter out of the bowl. Alright. Okay, so now we are going to add our dry ingredients. So what you want to do is you want to have all of your other stuff ready, and then you want to slowly kind of shake in some of the dry ingredients. As you're doing that, you want to stop periodically, and you want to mix it together. So you're going to... We have no power. Then you're going to go ahead and mix it. And this is where it'll really start to get its shape. It looks like cookie dough prior, but right now is where we're kind of getting all the good meat and bones with cookies. And as you're beating, you want to make sure you stop periodically, kind of push the ingredients around so that you make sure you're getting everything mixed in there. I think it looks pretty good here. Let's just make sure. Alright, so it looks nice and creamy. Everything looks mixed in. You always want to make sure when you're using these, if you're going to do anything with the beaters, you need to make sure that you unplug it. You can't just turn it off and you don't unplug it because they're really easy to turn it back on. So I always kind of push the batter out of the dough out of the beaters just to make sure it doesn't all get stuck in there. Make sure everything got mixed well inside of those as well. Sometimes you can get some things that get stuck on the beaters and then they don't mix it very well, so you just want to make sure. Alright, we look pretty good. So we're going to go ahead and go to our next step. So the next thing is we're going to add 2 large eggs. We want to add them one at a time. Alright, when you're doing eggs, it's really important that you do it over a separate bowl just to make sure that you don't get any eggshells in there. Alright, so we got one there. So we'll go ahead and dump that one in there. Then we're going to mix it a little bit, make sure that egg gets beaten in there really well. We need to turn it on. Alright, so we got one egg in. Let's go ahead and kind of push it off those beaters again. So this is a perfect example right here. So a little bit of the egg got stuck on top of the beater, so it didn't beat into with everything else. So you need to make sure that you get that off there, get everything kind of cleaned off, see where you're at. And then you want to just do it a little bit more. Alright, we're looking pretty good. So we're going to go ahead and do our next one in here. So we've got one more egg that we need to add. So it's really nice to crack it over a bowl in case you get some eggshells in there, or if you get a rotten egg or something like that, then that way you can just throw it away and you don't need to use it in the batter. good here. I'm going to go ahead and just kind of show you what that mixture looks like. So it looks pretty cookie dough-like. So what are we missing? Chocolate chips. All right, so we're going to go ahead and add those next. But first, I want to get rid of these beaters. So we're going to unplug it again. And then we're going to take the beaters off. We're going to eject them from the machine. Then we're going to go ahead and just kind of push the cookie dough down and out. Typically, once you're all ready to go, I usually use a fork versus a spoon. It pushes it out a little bit more, a little bit easier to kind of get it. Alright, so they look pretty good there. So we're going to go ahead and set those in a separate bowl. Then we're going to take this and just kind of stir it around one last time. Just give it a last double check, making sure that we got everything mixed in there really good. And everything's... Alright. So our last but not least ingredient is our chocolate chips. So I got the chocolate chips right here. We are going to need 2 cups of chocolate chips. So typically when I add my chocolate chips, I'll add 1 cup at a time and mix it, just to make sure I kind of get everything all mixed around like we talked about with everything else. Sometimes if you add too many chips at once, your dough gets really heavy and you're not going to be able to mix it around. So, alright. Let's see here. Perfect. A little bit of trouble with that bag there. We'll need 2 cups of chips. So this you also want to measure over a separate bowl just in case. Alright, so we got 1 cup there. We'll go ahead and mix it around. Make sure everything's in there. Mixed in real good. Alright, we need 1 more cup of chips. So again, you're going to make sure you measure it over something else. Alright, looks like we had almost exactly 2 cups in there, so we will be good to go. Alright. And then you really want to mix them up. Make sure all the chocolate chips are in there. Otherwise you get some cookies that have chocolate chips, some that don't. No one likes to get the one without chocolate chips. Alright, so it looks like we're pretty good here. So we're going to go ahead and just kind of move this stuff aside, and then I will show you how to add the cookies to the tray. Alright, so with the tray here, for this particular recipe, it calls for an ungreased baking sheet. So we're going to go ahead and just use this one as it is. We don't need a baking sheet. Alright, and in the recipe, it says you should do 1 tablespoon of rounded dough. So we're going to go ahead and take the fork and kind of put it onto the spoon here. Fill it up, and then we're just going to push it off right with the fork. You don't want to do this with your hands because that's not really always the best sanitary-wise. Alright, and when you're putting them on the cookie sheet, you want to make sure that they're about 1 inch apart because they're going to grow when they get baked. So about 1 inch, usually it's 2 fingers apart. So if you don't want to touch it, but you want to maybe just put your 2 fingers kind of in between, make sure it's all good. Alright, so your cookie should look something like this on the tray. And then once you're done filling up the tray, just go ahead and put it in the oven. For this particular method, you're going to bake it at 375 for 9 to 11 minutes. The best thing to do is bake it for 9, check the cookies, make sure they're done, and if they're not, you can let them go a little bit longer. Sometimes it might even, depending on the oven, it might be a little bit longer than the 11 minutes. So you kind of just have to start checking and making sure that they look good. They're not getting too brown or anything like that. So I think that wraps up the cookie demo for today. Thank you.